had always believed that love was unshakable until the night I saw him. Not in my arms, not with the smile he reserved for me, but standing in the glow of a street lamp with another man's hand brushing against his cheek. The cold bit through my sweater as I froze on the sidewalk. The city around me blurred into meaningless shapes and sounds. His lips moved, soft words I couldn't hear, but the way he looked at the other man told me everything. I didn't wait for explanations. My chest was tight, and my throat burned. My feet carried me away from him, away from the truth I wasn't ready to hear. New York's winter air clawed at my skin, but it couldn't hurt me more than what I'd just seen. That night should have ended with me collapsing into bed, drowning in tears. Instead, it ended in the arms of a stranger man whose presence was so commanding it seemed to part the world around him. The sound of boots on wet pavement caught my attention before I saw him. He was tall, his posture a perfect line of discipline, his coat cutting sharp angles against the rain. His gaze landed on me like a weight steady, assessing, but not unkind. "You shouldn't be out here like this," he said, his voice deep, warm, and edged with authority. "I'm fine," I lied, my breath visible in the cold. He studied me for a moment longer, as if deciding whether to let me walk away. Then his tone softened. "You're shivering." Without waiting for permission, he shrugged off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. The coat was warm, heavy. It smelled faintly of cedar and something distinctly him, something that made my pulse stutter. "I don't even know your name," I murmured. "Elias Monroe," he replied. "Major General, 3rd Division." He gave a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And you?" I hesitated. "Rowan Hart." His brow furrowed slightly, recognition flashing in his gaze. "Hart as in engaged to Captain Bennett Hart?" My heart clenched at the sound of my fiancé's name. I swallowed hard, turning away. "Not anymore." Something in his expression shifted then. He didn't push for details, didn't ask the questions I could see forming in his mind. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low. "Then you need somewhere safe to go tonight." The apartment he took me to was nothing like I expected from a man of his rank. It was warm, lived in, with books lining the walls and a faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. He made me tea without asking what I liked, as though he already knew I needed something simple and grounding. I sat on his couch, my hands wrapped around the steaming mug, and finally let the truth spill out. "I saw him tonight," I said quietly, "with someone else. And it wasn't just friendly." Elias didn't flinch, but I caught the flicker of something anger, maybe passed through his eyes. "Rowan," he said my name carefully, like it mattered to him already. "I'm sorry." I laughed bitterly. "Don't be. I should have seen it coming. Bennett's been distant for weeks. Always busy, always elsewhere." He didn't offer empty reassurances. Instead, he sat beside me, close enough that the warmth of his body seeped into mine. His presence was steady, grounding, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was about to break apart. The days that followed blurred into a strange new rhythm. I stayed in Elias's apartment because I told myself I had nowhere else to go. But deep down, I knew it was because I felt safe there. Elias never overstepped. He didn't pry into my past or push me to talk. But there were moments, small, unguarded moments, that made it impossible to ignore the pull between us. Like the morning I found him in the kitchen, hair damp from a shower, sleeves rolled up as he cooked breakfast. Or the evening we sat on his balcony, watching snow drift under the streetlights, our knees brushing as we shared a blanket. Still, every time his gaze lingered too long, I reminded myself, he's your ex-fiancé's commanding officer. This is dangerous, complicated. And yet, the storm broke one night when I ran into Bennett again. I hadn't meant to. I was on my way back from the store, snow crunching under my boots, when I heard my name. "Rowan." I froze, my pulse spiking. Bennett was there, breathless, eyes wide with something that looked like regret. "We need to talk," he said. I shook my head. "There's nothing left to say." "There's everything to say," he insisted. "That night it wasn't what you think." The ache in my chest flared. But before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the cold air. Is he bothering you? Elias's presence was like a wall between us, his hand lightly on my arm. His gaze locked on Bennett with the kind of authority that left no room for challenge. Bennett's jaw tightened. This isn't your business, General. It is, Elias said evenly. When it involves someone under my care, something unspoken passed between them, sharp and electric. I didn't know what history they shared, but in that moment, I knew one thing: Elias wasn't just protecting me out of obligation. That night, as I sat on Elias's couch with a blanket draped over my legs, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Why are you doing this? Helping me? His gaze met mine, steady and unflinching. Because you deserve someone who sees you, Rowan. Not someone who takes you for granted. The words lodged in my throat, because no one had ever said them to me before. And just like that, the line I'd been trying to hold between us began to blur. The following week felt like walking a tightrope. I kept telling myself this was temporary, that sooner or later, I'd have to leave Elias's apartment and face my life again. But each day, the thought of walking away from him made my chest ache. Still, there was a wall between us. Not one Elias had built, but one I was clinging to for dear life. I was terrified of needing him too much. That wall started to crack on a Tuesday night. We were in the kitchen, cooking together, if you could call it that. I was chopping vegetables while Elias manned the stove. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the air. Hold on, he said suddenly, stepping behind me. He reached around, his hands gently correcting the angle of my knife. You'll cut yourself like that. His breath was warm against my ear, his chest firm at my back. I froze, every nerve in my body sparking. I'm fine, he whispered. You're not, he said quietly, and I realized he wasn't talking about the knife. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he'd looked at me as if he saw straight through me. At some point, I gave up on sleep entirely and padded into the living room. Elias was there, sitting on the couch with a book in hand, the dim light catching the sharp line of his jaw. Couldn't sleep? He asked. I shook my head. You? Same. He closed the book, setting it aside. Come here. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. I sat beside him, and before I could stop myself, I leaned into his side. His arm came around me instantly, pulling me closer. For a long time, we didn't speak. The quiet felt safe, like we were suspended in a world where nothing could touch us. The next day, Bennett showed up at Elias's door. I was the one who answered. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes bloodshot, uniform wrinkled. Rowan, he said, his voice hoarse. Please, I need you to hear me out. Before I could respond, Elias appeared behind me. You've said enough, Captain. Bennett's gaze flicked between us, something dark and wounded in his eyes. So it's true. You're with him. My stomach twisted. It's not like that, I started, but my voice faltered, because maybe, in ways I wasn't ready to admit, it was like that. Bennett's jaw clenched. You think he cares about you? He's my superior officer, Rowan. He'll drop you the moment it becomes inconvenient. That's enough, Elias said, his voice low but dangerous. You don't get to stand here and talk about me while you're the one who broke his trust. Bennett's shoulders sagged. I made a mistake, but it wasn't what you think. Then what was it? I demanded. His silence was answer enough. After Bennett left, I sat on the couch, staring at my hands. My chest felt hollow. Elias stood by the window for a moment before he came to sit beside me. You don't owe him forgiveness, he said softly. I know, I murmured, but part of me still wants to understand why. He didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, he took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. Sometimes we don't get the answers we want. Sometimes the only thing we can do is choose who will let hurt us again and who we won't. It happened 2 nights later. We were on the balcony. The city spread out below us, lights flickering like distant stars. Snow drifted down, catching in Elias's hair. I don't know what this is between us, I said finally, but I know I feel safe with you. like I can breathe again. He turned toward me, his gaze steady. I know what it is for me. My heart pounded. And what's that? Wanting you, he said simply. Not because you're broken. Not because you need saving. But because you're you. And I can't stop thinking about you, Rowan. The air between us shifted. I felt the heat of him, the steady strength that had been my anchor since that night in the rain. And then, slowly, he reached for me. His fingers brushed my cheek, tilting my face toward his. I didn't resist. The kiss was soft, at first hesitant, as if he was giving me every chance to pull away. But when I didn't, it deepened, and for the first time in weeks, the ache in my chest eased. We didn't rush after that. We didn't have to. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet moments became the ones I lived for, waking up to the smell of his coffee, finding his notes tucked between the pages of my books, hearing his laugh when I burned toast for the third time in a row. Bennett faded into the background of my life. The pain was still there, but it no longer owned me. One evening, as we sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around us, Elias spoke without looking away from the fire. I never thought I'd find someone in the middle of all this chaos, he said. But you make all of it make sense. I smiled, resting my head against his shoulder. You saved me, Elias. His arm tightened around me. No, you saved yourself. I just made sure you didn't do it alone. The winter thawed into spring, and with it, I found myself ready to step back into the world. But this time I wasn't stepping out alone. On a warm April evening, Elias and I walked hand in hand through Central Park, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers. I caught him watching me, and for once I didn't look away. You're staring, I teased. Getting my fill, he replied with a grin. And just like that, I realized this wasn't the story of losing someone. It was the story of finding someone I didn't even know I was searching for. Someone who saw me, loved me, and I wasn't letting him go. The morning sun spilled through the wide windows of Elias's apartment, casting soft gold across the wooden floor. I woke to the sound of coffee brewing and the faint, rich aroma drifting from the kitchen. Padding out of the bedroom, still in one of Elias's oversized shirts, I found him standing at the counter, hair a little messy, sleeves pushed up as he poured coffee into 2 mugs. You're up early? I murmured, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. He leaned back into me without hesitation. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd make breakfast for us. I smiled against his back. That's dangerously domestic of you, General. He turned, one hand sliding to the small of my back, the other offering me a mug. Get used to it. You're not going anywhere. I took a sip, letting the warmth seep into me, and realized he was right. This quiet mornings, shared smiles, the steady weight of his presence wasn't something I'd ever want to give up. Good, I said, meeting his gaze, because neither are you. And in that sunlit kitchen, with the world moving quietly beyond our windows, I knew we'd both already chosen each other every day, for all the days to come. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.